Welcome back, gang, to the Priority Learning Culture Coaching Podcast. I'm sitting here with one of the owners and founders of Priority Learning, Ralph Twombly. How we doing today, Ralph?
Good, Mike. Good to see you.
Good
to see you as always.
Good to be seen.
I hear you.
The video. So, welcome back, gang. Today we're going to be going over a new book that Ralph and the team are writing. Is it fair to say Ralph and the team?
Ralph and the team.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit. Let's just dive right in. Tell us a little bit about it.
You bet. Well, for a long time, I think we go by request here at Priority Learning. And one of the things we're asked to do a lot is to help people with performance issues. Performance is, we think of it here as more of an art form than it is a process. So everybody, you have to meet them on their own ground. And we find out that leaders struggle with some of that stuff. They really do. I think there's a general consensus that we would all like to have one size fits all, but all of us unique characters need a little different approach. And we wrote a book that we hope tackles all of those issues.
Yeah, well, that sounds pretty excellent because I think, the further on the calendar we get, the more people realize how unique we are as individuals. And, kind of like snowflakes, there's no two that are exactly alike. And you might be able to, not the current political term snowflake, you know what I mean? But just like in the actual, how snowflakes are different.
That's right.
But, obviously you can put people into groups and, we can do that pretty well. But when it comes down to getting performance out of an employee, it's a lot more specific and it's a lot more attention intensive to say, hey, we want to take you from where you're at and bring you up here because we see that potential in you.
Yeah. I think when we talk in workshops a lot, we always show people the model of 10-80-10, where we talk about there's a bottom 10%, a top 10%, and there's an 80% that's always in flow. And part of the immediate thing that a lot of people go to is, how do I get rid of my bottom 10%? Now, that is much easier than it sounds, to be honest. I think most people have organized, progressive discipline processes in place that they can work through if they choose to work through. When we wrote the book, we're much more concerned with what to do with everybody. So there's obviously there's some information in there on what to do with troubled employees. But we also have the vast majority of the book is really, how do we advance performance in general? And it's really based on the fact that there are some really good motivational pieces that you can tap into in everybody's life, because I really do believe people come to work to be successful. They don't come to work and fail. And in their lives, they value their success, whether it's with their families or with their friends or in hobbies or whatever people do. And why would it be any different in the workplace? And sometimes I think that we don't do enough as leaders to know how to meet people on their own ground. It's complicated, as they say, and most people would say, gee, they're so complicated, and tomorrow Mike will show up as a little bit different guy than he shows up at today, which is true.
Yeah.
So what we wrote is a bit of a field book about how to manage performance at all levels. The high performers need attention. They need they deserve attention.
Yeah.
They deserve attention. Your average performers generally want to do better. And sometimes we don't bother with them because they're not broken. We have a tendency in our society to go to the broken things. And so we immediately go to how to solve the problem of the bottom 10%.
So how about this though? Because you're going to have, at least in my experience and just a little bit of assuming that it's kind of a universal thing, you have your high performers, your average performers, and your bottom performers. But within that group, you have the people who want attention. Doesn't matter where they are, they're just, hey, and a lot of the time with those people in the bottom, they're acting out to get some of that attention. And that's not all of them, but a portion of them. Same thing with the top, especially. You're going to have, I want to outperform my other, my coworkers so that I look good because I want to succeed. I want to progress. And you have that kind of attention seekers. But then you have the people who don't want attention, who just want to come in and do the job, but sometimes you need to get a better performance out of them too. So is there anything, does the book tackle those people as well?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that you have to remember is that people who traditionally come in and simply go, I'll be over in the corner until 4:30 and then I'm gone and please don't bother me all day, generally have been taught to do that.
Yeah.
And we, meaning the collective we leadership, have done that. At some point in their life, they were told, we think you don't, you work. Let's not get our
Neither seen nor heard, just do the job.
let's not confuse our roles.
Yeah.
Right. I lead, you do, and I think, but at the nature of not most people, not all people, but most people, is to do well, to be seen as unique. I think people like to go to a barbecue on a Saturday and brag about what they do. I think that in general, people take great pride when they go home and they collect their money and they make their livings to feel good about what they do. Yeah. We find out that these days that people won't participate in things that are just don't give value back in our society. I mean, the days of selling cigarettes, for instance, is over. It's bad, and everybody knows it's bad, and nobody wants to be associated with it. So most people, there's a money motive because we all have to make a living and we all have to put food on the table. But there's a lot more to it. And part of it, if you think about, sometimes half your waking hours are spent at work. Having real purpose and real direction and a goal in your life is a big deal.
Yeah,
a lot bigger than most people think. And I think we see things through our own lens many times, and we think we're the only ones that are truly motivated. I think most people are. They don't know quite how. And when we talk a little bit about this, organizations in general are foreign bodies. They are not normal, or, it's not like you're growing up in the country planting wheat and harvesting wheat in the fall and doing that. Those are normal, natural human things, and you acclimate. We've taken people out of their homes and we put them in these artificial environments to try to have that same kind of meaning.
Yeah.
And it's harder. And the secret to it is not much of a secret. It lives in leadership. Good leadership changes everything. You see it in everything from turnover to happiness to satisfaction to fulfillment and all these sort of things. So, I mean, I'm putting a lot of pressure. There's a lot of stuff in here, not just for leaders, but for people in general.
Yeah.
But we really soundly believe that if you set the stage right with performance, everybody wins.
Yeah.
Even the low performer.
Yeah. And then obviously we've spoken before about the 10-80-10 rule, which is kind of the more attention you put on those, the better performers, the more positive people,
sure,
those other attention seekers want to slide up so they can get some of that
they do.
Attention at all. So
they do.
So what was the motivation, the reason why you started putting this together? And tell us a little bit about the process, how it kind of started. You got the motivation, the brainchild was born, and you have this idea, and then you brought in a collaborative team.
I think, Michael, it started for me the day that I realized that this wasn't a convergent process. I think there are people who go, just give me the one thing I have to do to fix people. And as you realize, and anybody who's been around for any length of time at all realizes, there is no convergence on this. It is a divergent thing. It's things that has a myriad of things that can and should be done in certain places along the way. And when we started to collect those divergent ideas, the book came into focus a little bit, because you just can't do them randomly. They have to have a bit of a pattern. For instance, every good leadership experience should start with expectations. If you don't know what's expected of you, you cannot be successful.
Right.
Now, and if you ask me the leading cause of failure inside of work, I would tell you it's poorly or not lived up to expectations. I think people think, well, everybody knows, and then you find out they don't. And I think it's a leading cause of failure. For instance, when a person joins a job and they're expected to work, let's say a lot of hours and maybe weekends and maybe nights, and they're not told, and then all of a sudden they're surprised. I mean, this is the easy example. They go, not what I signed up for. I'm leaving. Yeah. And then they start the journey where you've now honestly lost them and they're looking for something else.
Right.
They're not going to, but they're gone.
Yeah, they're not going to put in the same effort to the work that they were before.
And they're going, I'm just going to be gone here. It's a little bit like when you go on vacation, in real life, and you're really on vacation the week before you're on vacation.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of started into the job, and your brain is someplace else most of the time. So what we realize is that when crystal clear expectations are put down and people understand how to do that, they do it. And the more that they do it, and if you had to give one tip to an emerging leader who's 22 years old, fresh out of school, decide they're going to dedicate their life to leadership, I would say learn how to give and receive expectations, and do the same thing with your boss. You know, because if you're unclear about what the expectation is, my promise to you is you're only going to get it about half right.
Yeah.
Because that's the best you can hope for, you know?
There's a lot of people, I feel like, and, you know, I've certainly done this in jobs where you go in, you're hyper attentive to all the things that you think you're supposed to do. And then you sit back and you go, okay, I think I've got this under control. And now and then you set your expectations for yourself to say, okay, this is what I believe this job is.
Yeah.
And coming in and say, oh, you never mop the floor.
Yeah. That's not in the job
Description, right? Like, it's
absolutely right.
yeah.
And I think that it's a great, one of the things that we know about, I think, let me talk about emotion for a minute. I think what happens with people is when they think they're doing things well, and all of a sudden they're told they're not doing things well, and the expectation was never set, it's demoralizing.
Yeah.
I think that being demoralized may feel like a momentary thing, but when it's done over and over, it becomes self-defeating. And I think it's actually included in a lot of books they're writing today about what we call the first law, which is the first law is that people will see their performance with their own eyes.
Yeah.
So unless you're told otherwise, you will just keep doing it. And every day you'll go home and you look at the person you love most and you'll say, wow, I hit a home run today. And you might find out one day you get surprised when somebody says, you're not doing this
I
right.
haven't even hit first base yet.
Yes, right. And it happens all the time.
Yeah.
It happens. There's stories abound. And one of the things, and throughout this book, we tell stories about some of these things. And because I was so lucky to get so many good people to make contributions to this thing, their stories are in there. And we tried to put them in the appropriate places and give credit where it's due. But this is real life. This is stuff that people experience every day. And some of the stories have just been wonderful. And as we go through this thing, this book, which started out as the idea behind a workshop, ended up being something that's a bit of a labor of love. Yeah. And I hope when the audience out there starts to see it, they start to see a systematic way to approach performance for all people, so that we don't just go to work to make money. We go to work, the satisfaction of doing a job well, of contributing to something bigger than ourselves is powerful.
Yeah. Personal fulfillment.
Yeah. And I think I don't want to go backwards too much here, but there was a period in the 70s and 80s where everything was being engineered. They were doing efficiency experts in every place. Right? And the efficiency experts, it was a well-meaning idea because they felt like there was a lot of opportunities left on the table. And I think people saw engineered standards as the answer. And what it did to some degree, it took all the innovation and all the creativity out of work. Now, that's not the case 100% in anything, but one of the things we found out is that there was a period of time when everybody went, show me what to do, look at my job description, and I'll do that, and I'll be successful. Well, we all realize that job descriptions are what we call the minimum. Yeah. Right? And anybody, if you really want leadership to fail, you'll do exactly what they tell you to do. Right. If you never exceed that basic expectation, you will not be successful, because that's where you get a lot of people say, well, I did my job. Yeah. They find themselves at some point in time without an opportunity. There's an article in the book that we talk about a guy who was passed over, did a good job, thought he was doing a great job, and was passed over for an opportunity by a coworker. No, he was passed over because he thought he was doing just everything he had to do, and the coworker was basically exceeding expectation. Right. Now, he thought, why, I'm in line, and I'm going to get this, and he figured because he'd been on the job longer that he would actually get it, and he didn't. And it was a great learning lesson for him about continuous learning, about exceeding expectations, and all these kind of things. So the stories are real, and the idea of performance shouldn't be a mystery. It should be, I'm here and I need to do something. And that's how we designed the book. So let's say we've got a good employee like Michael, and he's been on the job for a couple of years, and he's starting to get ants in his pants, because we do. Sometimes, we just go, you look ahead, you're a young guy, and you go, oh my God, the next 40 years of my life, I'm going to be doing this. It's terrifying for people, right?
Yeah.
To think about doing the same thing for 40 years is terrifying for anybody, right? And so you sit back and you go, what do we do with Michael? He's doing a good job. He's fulfilling our obligations. But now what? And I think we've hit this kind of model where we don't know how to keep people vital. And it's not just the company's responsibility.
Right.
It's also the employee's responsibility. And so we all have a responsibility to figure out things like what vitality means to us. And vitality is, to me, a word that says, I'm going to get excited. I not every day, all day. It's work. They call it work for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. But to get excited about an upcoming project, to look forward to, one of the things that's different about entrepreneurial life is you're only successful in entrepreneurial life if you get excited about what you're doing.
Right.
You just can't get into the world of
If you don't want to run your business every day, you won't.
That's right. And it's interesting that if you said, wow, we had a real successful year in 2025, so therefore it'll be you're wrong.
Right.
You're going to have to continue to build and reinvent. Employee life should be the same way.
Yeah.
And so you wonder why it's a little terrifying. And for some people, they go, I don't know what to do next. Well, we do. Yeah. And that's what the book is a little bit about. In other words, how do you get people to the point where they get excited about their futures, where they start to make contributions that are unusual and really tap into the unique ability of every human to make something happen that wouldn't have happened without them.
Yeah.
It's kind of the magic inside of the book. So
what's the book going to be called?
Well, to be honest with you, we're still wrapped. I'm like, I haven't heard a title yet. I have to tell you, Michael, the hardest thing about writing a book, this is the third book, the hardest thing about writing a book is the title.
Yeah.
Where? It's the title, because to get it right, we called the first one, The Leadership Maker, which turned out to be a pretty good title at the particular time. And the second one was The Magic Behind the Curtain, which is about culture.
Yeah.
This book, I'm going to bring in probably Steve Hirachek, who is our kind of the guy who came up with the titles for the first two. Right. He's going to come in and join us and maybe add a little bit of art to the book and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to tap into him. I mean, it's a basic book about performance in general. That's not a snappy title.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty excited for it. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of listeners and viewers out there who are looking forward to this. So when is the book coming out?
Well, the book is scheduled to come out right around Labor Day. Okay. Which has got us on a pretty good turn. Yeah, we're getting to the time. Well, the book is written pretty much. We probably have just a few additions as Culbit's continued to be
editorial process.
Yeah, well, but we also have still people out there who are weighing in from time to time and sending me emails and I'm meeting with. So we'll be doing a few additions, but it's pretty much written. We're sitting Labor Day. We're going out right after Labor Day with a workshop series around this. The one thing I would tell anybody who's interested is I think one of the interesting secondary reasons we wrote it was because we realized that things like documentation in an age of digital was really becoming a bit of a lost start. Yeah. And people were going to their HR department and saying, gee, I really want to get this person promoted, but I don't have any proof of doing it. The proof is in working through a book like this and doing some of these basic skills, provide you with a documentary trail, both for high performers and for low.
Yeah.
So it takes kind of the guesswork. And I've checked with HR people, or a couple of them through the life of this project, and they said if people would simply do the processes that lead into this book, they would never have a problem again with the attorneys that you have to call.
Right.
Yeah. Kind of stuff. So that's one of the byproducts. And so we've made sure that we got to button it up and make sure that all the pieces are in the right order and all that stuff. So I would expect that Labor Day, the book will be coming out. And shortly after Labor Day, I think it's really mid-September, we're actually coming out with the first day of the workshop, which will be an 8-part process.
Yeah.
So
Well, Ralph, thank you so much for giving us a little bit of insight into this new book. Gang, you can keep an eye out for it. And then obviously, once the workshop series comes up, we'll probably have another podcast episode around that and as a separate subject. But keep an eye out for it. If it sounds interesting to you, you might want to sign up for it. So, Ralph, thank you very much again. I'm Mike, and thank you for watching the Culture Coaching Podcast. We'll see you next time.